Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so if you've ever driven through Norway, you already know the landscapes are absolutely breathtaking, right? But here's the thing. Those same majestic mountains, those deep fjords, and the incredibly remote highways, they can turn unforgiving in literally a split second. Today, we're diving straight into the strict rules of survival and compliance on these roads. We're going to break down the mandatory safety equipment required by Norwegian law and exactly how you need to use it to stay alive. Let's get into it. Just picture this for a second. You're driving down a super remote, pitch-black Norwegian road. The temperature is way below freezing, the snow is really starting to come down, and suddenly, your engine sputters and dies. You're completely stranded. If your car died right now, are you genuinely ready to just open your door and step outside? Because in Norway, road safety laws aren't just some boring bureaucratic suggestions. They are quite literally built around terrifying, high-stakes scenarios exactly like this one. So here's our survival checklist for today. First, we've got the 2 life-saving essentials. Then we'll look at calculating your safe distance, followed by the high-risk deployment. After that, we'll cover surviving the tunnel, the cost of negligence, and finally, going beyond the bare minimum. All right, let's start with Section 1, the 2 life-saving essentials. Now, Norwegian law actually draws a really stark line between where you absolutely must store these 2 items. Your reflective safety vest, that has to be kept inside the cabin, literally within arm's reach of the driver's seat. Think the glove box or maybe a door pocket. Why? Well, because you have to put it on before you even crack your door open to step out into traffic. The warning triangle, on the other hand, is perfectly fine hanging out in the trunk. But think about it. If you make the mistake of tossing your vest in the trunk with your triangle, you're forcing yourself to walk the entire length of your car totally unprotected in the dark. And honestly, that's just a fatal mistake waiting to happen. And hey, you can't just throw on any old bright jacket and call it a day. The vest actually has to meet specific European compliance standards. Usually you'll see this marked as EN 471, Class 2, or the newer EN ISO 2471. Basically, the crucial thing here is that it must be fluorescent, so yellow, orange, or red, and it absolutely must have those retroreflective strips. That's the technology that actually catches the headlights of approaching cars and bounces the light right back into the driver's eyes. In heavy rain, blowing snow, or just pitch darkness, this little vest is quite literally your main defense against being totally invisible. Oh, and a quick pro tip, while the law technically only requires 1 vest for the driver, it's a really, really good idea to carry enough of these certified vests for every single passenger in your car. Which brings us to the second essential item, and I think this sums it up perfectly. A warning triangle is useless if it cannot stand on its own or if the reflective material is damaged. Look, Norway has a seriously harsh, punishing climate. That extreme cold, it can make plastic components incredibly brittle, and the salt and moisture on the roads will quickly rust out the metal legs of your warning triangle. So it's really on you as a driver to regularly pull that triangle out of the trunk, make sure you actually know how to assemble the thing, and ensure it's going to stand up against a freezing wind before you ever hit the road. Moving right along to Section 2, calculating your safe distance. So the whole geometry of survival here relies entirely on how fast that approaching traffic is actually moving. If you're in an urban area where speeds are 50 kilometers per hour or less, you need a minimum buffer of about 50 meters. Makes sense, right? But if you're on a rural road or a motorway where cars are flying by at 80 kilometers per hour or more, well, those cars are covering an enormous amount of ground before the driver can even react and hit the brakes. In that scenario, you need at least 150 meters. And if you're dealing with thick fog, heavy snow, or just darkness, you've got to push that distance way out to 200 or even 250 meters, regardless of what the speed limit sign says. But keep in mind, those numbers we just talked about, those are just the absolute minimums, assuming you're on a perfectly flat, perfectly straight road. And we all know Norway is famous for its dramatic terrain. If your car breaks down just over the crest of a steep hill or right after a sharp blind curve, pacing out 150 meters doesn't do you any good if your warning triangle is completely hidden by the landscape. You always have to use your best judgment here. Place the triangle before the crest or before the bend so other drivers are warned well before they're suddenly right on top of you. Next up is Section 3, the high-risk deployment. Actually getting out and deploying that gear is no joke. It requires a very specific, almost tactical procedure. Step 1, put your vest on before you even open the door. Step 2, always face the traffic. You want to walk on the shoulder or as far off the road as you possibly can, keeping your eyes glued to ongoing cars so you can literally jump out of the way if someone drifts. Step 3, hold the assembled triangle directly in front of you while you walk. That reflective surface basically acts as a bright red shield, making you visible way before it even touches the asphalt. Step 4, secure the placement. If the wind is just howling, grab a rock to weigh down the base. And finally, step 5, return safely to your car. Stay well off the road on your way back, preferably tucked behind a guardrail if there is one. Which brings us to section 4, surviving the tunnel. Now, tunnel hazards in Norway are genuinely terrifying. The artificial lighting creates these really deceptive blind spots. Plus, when massive transport trucks come barreling through those narrow tunnels, they push a literal wall of air right in front of them and then pull a massive vacuum right behind them. Honestly, those air currents can easily blow over a poorly placed warning triangle. Your best defense in there is all about high contrast. Your bright vest against those dark tunnel walls is your absolute best chance of being seen. You have to make absolutely sure your triangle is locked and weighted down firmly. And crucially, this is a big one. Always look out for the dedicated emergency stations located inside the tunnels. They're equipped with dedicated emergency phones and fire extinguishers, and you should definitely use them if things go south.
Let's move on to section 5, the costs of negligence.
So what happens if you ignore all this? Well, the consequences cascade really quickly, both legally and financially. If the police or the Norwegian Public Roads Administration catch you without your vest or your triangle, you are getting slapped with an on-the-spot fine, no questions asked. On top of that, if you're missing this gear during your EU control, that mandatory periodic vehicle inspection, your car will immediately fail. It simply won't be cleared for the road. But listen, it gets much, much worse. Let's say you break down, you fail to properly set up your warning triangle, and another car hits you. You could actually be held partially or even fully liable for that collision. That means your insurance company could deny your claim entirely. And in severe cases, you could even face criminal charges for negligence. The stakes here are just incredibly high. Finally, section 6, beyond the bare minimum. Look, to truly survive a Norwegian winter driving scenario, you really need to look at some highly recommended supplementary gear. First up, a first aid kit is absolutely essential, mainly because in those remote areas, emergency services might be a long, long way out. You'll also want a small powder fire extinguisher. It can literally stop a tiny engine spark from turning your entire vehicle into a burned-out shell. You definitely need a dedicated flashlight for checking under the hood in the dark, because your phone flashlight just won't cut it. Heavy work gloves are going to protect your hands from frostbite when you're out there fumbling with cold metal triangles or trying to change a frozen tire. And lastly, jump cables. They're an absolute lifesaver for those notoriously common cold start battery failures right in the dead of winter. Which really just leaves us with this one final question. Are you just legally compliant, or are you truly prepared to survive? Think about it. Having some old vest stuffed under the floorboards and a cracked triangle rattling around in your trunk might technically tick a bureaucratic box, but it is not going to save your life when you're suddenly stranded out in the freezing dark. So I highly encourage you to go out to your car today, find your vest, actually test your warning triangle, and pack that extra winter gear. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay incredibly safe out there on the roads, and I will catch you in the next one.